Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Christine Weigert. I'm the Director of Guidance here in Hawthorne. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I was just watching our numbers as we had people joining the webinar. Thank you for being here with us to talk all things financial aid. Tonight we have a wonderful presenter with us. His name is Doug Wilson. He represents the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, which really is where we get our state money for our students who go to school in state. And he is going to present a wealth of information tonight regarding financial aid. Before we get to introducing Doug, I would like to introduce Mr. Kodomo. He plays an integral part in our relationship with HISA and getting this program in place on a yearly basis. So Mr. Kodomo, just if you would like to share a couple words.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our financial aid night annual meeting we have each year. Doug was with us last year, so this is his second year with us. He did a great job last year, so we're expecting the same thing tonight. The most important thing is to listen, and if you have any questions, we'll be taking questions probably at the end. So if you can hold your questions and write them down, it'll probably be best. And just remember that this is one of the most important steps to your child's higher education is filling out the FAFSA and getting hopefully the money that you guys are entitled to. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Doug to our meeting.
Thank you, Hawthorne High School staff, and good evening, parents and students on the call. It's good to see you, well, virtually anyway. Full disclosure, I do represent New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. As I mentioned to John and Christine earlier, I'm actually working at Delaware State University, but New Jersey is always in my heart. Raised in Montclair, it's not too far from you. So it's always a pleasure to represent the Garden State and work with Jerseyans going forward. And as you just heard, the financial aid process, it's an essential part of your college experience, or at least during the admissions part and during your enrollment for the next 3, 4, 5 years, however long your education will be. Some technical issues. As we mentioned, this program is brought to you by the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority in conjunction with financial aid administrators at colleges and universities throughout the state of New Jersey. Whichever college you're thinking of attending, whether it be New Jersey or another state, within that college, there's an office called financial aid or student assistance. Their goal, among other things, is to assist you with all your financial resources for which you're applying. They administer all the federal and state programs, some of which I'm going to talk about tonight. And they'll talk about resources that are available to you. And as you're completing the FAFSA, don't just think that it's one and done. You're not finished by any means. If you have any questions regarding the FAFSA, you can reach out to the financial aid office to assist you. And even beyond the FAFSA, they'll guide you as far as what steps are next. I'm not going to tell you specifically how to apply for financial aid for a particular college or university, but we're going to give you some general information, which applies to just about any college in New Jersey or in the United States. So I'll begin by talking about types of aid at the federal and state level, and then we'll talk a little bit about the application process. When you think of financial aid, some people think of scholarships, others think of loans that you have to borrow, others think, oh, there are also some grants. Other people think, yeah, I can work my way through college. Each and every one of you would be correct because financial aid can be broken down into 4 types. If you look on the right of your screen, grant money, that's money from the federal government, from the state government. In some cases, the colleges or the universities themselves, and they're based on financial need, based on the information you report on the FAFSA or other applications. That's free money, and so are scholarships, which are based on merit, how well you did in high school, if you participated in any extracurricular activities, where college admissions officers evaluate you and determine your eligibility for merit-based awards or scholarships, either at the college or even within your own community. As I mentioned before, some people may need to consider borrowing money from loans, and there are some low-interest student loans available to you. For students, there's one loan where there's not even a credit check. By virtue of you completing the FAFSA, you'd be considered for what's called the federal direct loan, which I'll describe a little later on. And as I mentioned before, you can also earn some money while you're in college through programs such as the Federal Work Study Program or a State Work Study Program. Some institutions have that. As I mentioned, financial aid can come from several sources, the largest being the federal government. Then many states participate in financial aid processes, including the state of New Jersey. The colleges and universities often have some grant or scholarship programs. And in some cases, you don't even have to look beyond your own backyard. If you're part of a civic organization or a church, a lot of them have a scholarship opportunity, which can range from a couple $100s to a few thousand, in some cases, full tuition, room and board, depending on the competition or what's available from that particular organization. So those are the types of aid. Now, as you're exploring colleges and universities, especially the website, if you look in the admissions or the financial aid website, look for something called the net price calculator, where you'll enter bits of information, including your EFC if you know it, or income or household items, where the net price calculator would estimate how much you would qualify for from federal or state grants or even institutional monies, including scholarships, depending upon your ACT or SAT scores or class ranking. And that money is subtracted from your tuition fees and room and board if you're planning to live on campus. And the net amount would be the amount for which you would be responsible, either through your own resources or if you need to consider borrowing for a loan, that is available. But definitely look into your net price calculator at that particular college and universities, just to get an idea. As I mentioned, the largest source of federal monies, largest source of monies from the federal government. I'll talk about the grant programs first, the most common of which would be the Pell Grant, which can range anywhere from a few $100s to as much as, well, $6,495 for the current year. When you begin college next fall, it might be a little bit higher. For the past 2 or 3 years, the maximum Pell Grant has actually increased by about $100 or $150. So I mean, it's not a promise, but you might be looking at something close to $6,600 if you qualify for the maximum Pell Grant or if you have high financial need. Some colleges also participate in what's called the Supplemental Grant or SEOG, Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. The amounts can range depending upon how much is available to the college, because they want to award that to as many students as possible, the maximum award being $4,000. And there's also something called a Teach Grant. If there are any aspiring teachers out there, if you agree to teach in a high need position in a high need area, you may be eligible for a grant of up to $4,000 for up to 4 years. Again, you have to agree to teach in one of these high need fields for a minimum of 4 years within 8 years after you graduate. And before you receive the grant, you'll sign an agreement to serve if you accept the grant, and it'll tell you what the conditions are in order to receive this grant. Again, if you're thinking of teaching. Those are the federal grants. I'll spend a little bit of time about TAG and other state programs. Over the past few years, the state programs have grown or in numbers. Before it's just a few TAG, EOF, and Governor's Urban Scholarship. As you'll see later, depending upon whether you're going to a 2-year public or a 2-year or 4-year public, you may qualify for additional assistance from the state of New Jersey. But I'll start with the tuition aid grant or TAG. To qualify for TAG, of course, you have to complete the FAFSA. You have to be a New Jersey resident attending school in the Garden State. You have to be enrolled full-time. And you have to meet all the state deadlines, which I'll talk about a little later on. If you're starting at the county college level, there's something called a part-time TAG award, where if you're taking at least 6 credits or going at least half-time, you may qualify for a prorated TAG amount. So that's TAG. Another program, EOF, it's not really a financial aid program per se. It's more of an academic program where you can receive up to $2,750 separate from the TAG award. And that's awarded to students who demonstrate educational and economic disadvantage. And that's usually determined during the admissions process. And as with TAG and Pell, you have to complete the FAFSA each year or the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid Application. Now, that second part, New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid Application, that'll become important for anybody who doesn't meet these citizenship requirements, which I'll talk about in a minute. I spoke earlier about the governor's urban scholarship, where if you rank among the top 5% of your class at the end of your junior year and attain at least a 3.0 at the end of the junior year, you may qualify for a scholarship of up to $1,000 per year for up to 4 years by attending a 2-year or 4-year New Jersey college or university. You have to file a FAFSA as with any other program, and you have to have a New Jersey Eligibility Index or NJEI of $10,500 or below. That's an index that's calculated after you complete the FAFSA. Another program that's available, if you're among the top 15% of your graduating class, either at the end of your junior or senior year, and you're starting at the county college level, in your case, I believe Passaic, you may find yourself eligible for the NJ STARS scholarship, which will pay up full-time tuition for up to 5 semesters at your local county college. For full tuition, whatever Pell and TAG do not cover, NJ STARS will cover the difference. And then if you graduate with at least a 3.25 and you transfer to a 4-year institution in New Jersey, there's a program called NJ STARS 2, for which you can receive up to $2,500 per year. Originally, this program was only offered at public New Jersey institutions. Now it's also available at independent or private institutions as well. To qualify for NJ STARS 2 or even NJ STARS 1, you'd have to be enrolled at least full-time, which at most institutions would be 12 or more credits. And as with everything else, you have to complete the FAFSA. At certain colleges and universities, well, colleges, whether it be a county college or a vocational school, there's a program that was established a few years ago called NJ Gives, the Governor's Industry Vocational Scholarship for Women and Minorities, which awards up to $2,000 for the cost of enrollment at one of the county colleges or technical or vocational schools in New Jersey, where if your income is less than $60,000, you may qualify for this award. You have to file a FAFSA again, and you have to be enrolled in a qualifying program such as construction supervision, solar energy, or architectural engineering. This is a program that was established 3 or 4 years ago, the Community College Opportunity Grant, or CCOG. Again, if you're at the county college level, it's a grant of last resort. If your family's adjusted gross income is less than $65,000, whatever Pell, TAG, NJ STARS does not cover, CCOG will cover the difference. If you're attending school, again, full-time, and you file the FAFSA, not full-time, you have to attend at least half-time and making satisfactory academic progress to qualify for the CCOG. So I'm not saying it's completely easy, but it's gotten a little easier for families to be able to afford a college education, courtesy of the state of New Jersey and the federal government. And here's a program that you're going to benefit from beginning in fall of 22. It's called the Garden State Guarantee. It's available for students in the 3rd or 4th year of enrollment, so in your junior or senior year in college. Again, if your family's adjusted gross income is $65,000 or less, you qualify for that. If it's more than that, you qualify for something up to a sliding scale. As far as pricing structure, if you're going to a public institution, whatever your tuition rate is when you enter, that's going to be locked in for the duration of your studies at that particular college or university. Families who attended college before or have children who attended college before might be used to tuition increasing year after year after year. under the Garden State Guarantee Initiative, your tuition will be locked in for FAFSA filers and you meet all of the conditions. Again, everything I'm speaking about, it's available on HESA's website in case I forget to mention, or also you can speak to a financial aid or admissions representative at that particular college or university, or also your high school's guidance office, people who introduce me and who work with you every day. And there's also the 3+1 degree completion program. Many four-year colleges are partnering with their local community college offering this program where naturally you're paying the community college rate for your first 2 years. Then if you transition into a four-year institution, public institution, for that third year, you'll be charged the community college rate. And then you pay the four-year rate once you transition into your fourth year. And again, to qualify for that, you have to file the FAFSA, meet satisfactory academic progress, and meet all the other conditions, same as all the other programs. As I said, New Jersey has been investing in higher education for not just years, decades. Even back when I was in college, I'm not going to tell you what year, but back then, they had a robust program and it's become a little more robust. So definitely take advantage of that. Now, in some cases, grants might not be enough to cover your resources, or your own resources might not be enough to cover the cost of your education. So, well, before I get into loans, I just want to mention just about every college or university has some sort of payment plan option, where if you're not able to pay everything in one lump sum, you can pay your tuition and fees in installments, usually 3, 4, or 5 month payments during the semester. So if you can manage doing that as opposed to taking in a loan, we recommend doing that. Otherwise, there are, again, low interest loans available. I'll start with the direct subsidized Stafford loan. By virtue of you, the student completing the FAFSA, there's no credit check. You'll automatically be considered for the direct loan program of $5,500 for your first year. And of that amount, up to $3,500 is subsidized. By subsidized, we mean that while you're in school and during your 6-month grace period before you have to start repaying the loan, Uncle Sam is paying the interest on that loan. So you can think of it as an interest-free loan, again, until you begin repayment. If part of your loan is unsubsidized, you don't have to pay any principal while you're in school, but interest would be your responsibility. The amount of interest varies from year to year, and it's set by the federal government and it's fixed. So as far as the interest, you have 2 options. You can pay it every 3 months, quarterly, or if not, then it's capitalized. In other words, you'll be paying interest on the interest, which wouldn't be a whole lot. But if you're able to pay the interest while you're in school, that'll save you money over time. As far as the rates for direct loans, right now they're 3.73%. By the time you enter college, we don't know what they are yet. You'll probably know, and we'll probably know sometime in the spring of 2022 what the rates will be. Now, again, there are limits to the amount of subsidized and unsubsidized loan. Now, if you've done the math or if you've looked at tuition and fees at particular colleges and universities, you know that $5,500 is not going to be enough. What are you going to do? Well, there are other loan programs, supplemental loan programs. One of them is from the state of New Jersey. It's called NJ Class, which offer fixed and variable rate loans to eligible families. Now, these loans and others I'm going to discuss are based on credit worthiness. So if you, the student, take out the loan, if you have exceptional credit or good credit, you may qualify for that. If you don't, you can apply with an eligible co-borrower, which could be your parent or other responsible adult willing to co-sign a loan. That's from the state of New Jersey. There's a federal loan, which mom or dad, you could take out on your student's behalf. It's called the PLUS loan. It's an acronym for Parent Loan for Undergraduate Students. The interest rate for the current year is 6.28%. For next year, we'll find out sometime in April or May what the rates will be if you decide to take out a loan. But again, that's a decision that you, the parent, and you, the student, would have to make. Now, if you do decide to apply for a PLUS loan or an NJ class loan or any other alternative or private loan that the school works with, that should be your last resort. Look into all resources, grants, scholarships, from the federal government, state government, or the college or university. One more thing I do want to mention, I spoke about the 4 types of aid, one of them being scholarships. I'm not going to spend a lot of time regarding about scholarships. Again, I did mention that it's based primarily on merit, depending on how you did in school as far as GPA. It can be based on athletics, academics, artistic ability, or something else, legacy programs at particular colleges or universities. If you have some sort of talent, I mentioned art, that's one. Athletics, if you did well in AP courses, if you did very well on your SATs, and you ranked very well at your college, you may qualify for particular scholarships through the institution, through the NCAA, or even within your own community. Now, what I just described as far as financial aid, that should not be an exhaustive list. Those are typically what you see at any college or university in New Jersey in the US. There may be other programs available at your particular college or university. Again, your best resource would be the college or university's financial aid office as far as finding out what resources are available there. I'm going to stop for a moment before I get into the application process, see if any questions came up. Hearing none.
I was just going to mention, Doug, for the audience, if you do have any questions, you can use the question and answer or the chat feature, and we can answer questions for you throughout if it's relevant, or again, we'll have questions at the completion of the presentation.
Thank you. Now I'm going to transition into the application portion. You've heard me mention the FAFSA several times. For most of you, that will be the primary application. There'll be another form you'd have to complete to be considered for state aid. And I'll also talk briefly about the College Board program. Some of you may be required to complete. I'll start with the College Board application, the CSS Profile. At some private institutions, there might be 1 or 2 in New Jersey. They would ask you to complete what's called the CSS Profile. It's not a FAFSA, but it is a financial need application where you'll be asked questions about your family's income, household, and other items. And the application is used to determine your eligibility for institutional grants or scholarships at that institution. Typically, if you're going to a college within New England, a lot of them require you to complete the CSS Profile. Now, there is a fee, that's okay. In order to complete the CSS Profile, depending on which college or scholarship programs you want to be considered for. That application, it's available now, as is the FAFSA. It's completely online and it's customized depending upon which college or which scholarship program you are requesting. You go to cssprofile.collegeboard.org. And there's also live customer support by dialing 844-202-0524.
Doug, I do have a question that came in relevant to some of the conversation that we had about loans. For NJ class, does that apply only to community college?
NJ class is available to eligible programs at 2- and 4-year colleges in New Jersey. Also, if you're attending a school outside the state, as long as you're a New Jersey resident, you can still apply for an NJ class loan. But typically, if you're enrolled in an eligible degree program at a 2-year or 4-year college, you can apply for an NJ class loan.
Super, thank you. So piggybacking off of that, in regards to the Garden State Guarantee, is that only good for New Jersey institutions?
As far as I know, yes, it's for New Jersey institutions, similar to TAG.
Okay, and then lastly, and then I think we can move forward. After you complete the FAFSA application, how long does it typically take for them to answer the application that you sent in? Or I'm assuming that means getting feedback regarding your award.
That person's actually getting ahead of me. I'm not even
Okay.
sure answering that. I mean, the FAFSA itself, the application process typically takes between 30 and 40 minutes. Not that the college is going to get it in real time. It's usually processed by the federal government within 3 to 4 business days after you, the student, have submitted the application. The college might receive it in the information in 3 to 4 days, but that doesn't mean you're going to be awarded right away. It depends on their awarding cycle. I mean, it's the earlier you complete the application, the better. Some colleges will start the awarding process or the review process as early as November or December of this year. So you definitely want to do that, particularly for campus-based funds, which are awarded essentially on a first come, first served basis. So getting back to the person's question, how long will it take? It varies. I mean, the processing of the actual application would be about 3 to 5 business days. The award process, check with your school's financial aid office as far as what their awarding cycle is. But even if they don't begin for a couple or 3 months, complete the application now. It's no harm.
Okay, we have a few more questions that came in, but I think we're going to probably still get to some of those answers. So why don't we move forward, and then we can always bounce back to those questions if still pertinent.
Got it. So now on to the main event, free application for federal student aid. That application became available last Friday. That doesn't mean you've missed the boat by any means. You can complete the application tonight, tomorrow, or the best thing to do is to check with your top 5 colleges deadlines, because they may vary as far as priority filing. They may ask you to complete it by January 1st, February 1st, or whatever. The earlier you complete the application, the better. It's available again now, and it can be used for any college or university that participates in federal student aid programs, some of which I described earlier. You can complete it on your laptop, desktop, or even your mobile device. Generally, you would go to studentaid.gov to complete the FAFSA, and you can also use studentaid.gov to perform other tasks, such as signing a master promissory note or doing entrance counseling, which I'll describe a little later on. As you're completing the FAFSA for the 2022-2023 award year, you're going to be asked some income information. Please be advised, for this school year, this particular school year, you're going to provide income information from tax year 2020. In other words, the tax return that you or your parents just filed earlier this calendar year. You need to use that information. You can have that information handy, or you can use the IRS data retrieval, which I'll talk about a little later on. I think there's a whole slide dedicated to the IRS data retrieval tool. Even if you're not ready to complete the FAFSA tonight, something that you can do is apply for what's called an FSA ID, which is your electronic signature. When I say your, I'm talking about you, the student applicant, and at least one parent. If you're living with your parents, at least one of them should have an FSA ID as well, which they'll use to e-sign your FAFSA. And again, the FSA ID can be used to e-sign your master promissory note. And also, at some point, if you want to check your financial aid history, you can go onto what's called the National Student Loan Data System, and you would log in again with your FSA ID. Now, if there are any parents who already have an FSA ID, if you have an older child who attended college recently and you e-signed a FAFSA for them, or if you have an FSA ID for yourself because you're in college, you can use that very same FSA ID to e-sign this next child's application. So once you have the FSA ID, it's basically yours for life. Now, a minute ago, I was talking about the IRS data retrieval tool. As you're completing the FAFSA, you'll be asked to provide income information from your 2020 tax return. There's a tool on the FAFSA called the IRS data retrieval tool, or DRT, where if you, the parent, or you, the student, filed a 2020 tax return. You indicate that on the FAFSA. You'll be asked if you'd like to transfer certain bits of information from your tax return onto your student's FAFSA. If you say yes, you'll be directed to the IRS website. After you authenticate your identity, your information will be transferred directly to the student's FAFSA. Now, for security reasons, you're not going to see that data. Everything will be opaque or obliterated, but as long as you're confident that the information you provided to the IRS when you originally filed is what it is, then that information will be transferred directly onto your student's FAFSA. And the student and the college will be privy to that information as well on their secure sites. Now, some families might not be able to use the data retrieval tool. For example, if you filed your 2020 tax return within the last 2 or 3 weeks, the IRS may not have all the information. Also, if your parents are married and for some reason they filed separate tax returns, they would not be able to use the data retrieval tool. They'd have to file a joint return in order to use this. Otherwise, they'd have to complete the application manually, which is not too bad as long as you have the correct information. For those of you who are able to see, we have a screenshot of what you expect to see on the FAFSA, which is broken down to about 5 or 6 or 7 sections. Make no mistake, this is the student's application. So students, know you're used to mom or dad taking ownership or taking charge of all of your information. From this point going forward, as you're completing college admission applications or financial aid application, this is your application. Yes, your parent will provide information and sign that the information that they're providing is accurate, but this is your information, so you need to take ownership. As you're completing the application, wherever it says you or your, that's referring to you, the student, not the parent. Now, if they're asking for your parents, it'll ask, what was your parents' adjusted gross income? So read the information carefully to make sure you're providing the correct person's information in the correct sections. Before I talk more about the FAFSA, I want to go over some of the eligibility requirements for receiving federal student aid. First and foremost, the student has to have a valid Social Security number. You have to be enrolled or planning to enroll in an eligible college or university, in an eligible program of study. You have to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. If there's somebody who's not a citizen, you're a dreamer, then you wouldn't qualify for federal aid, but you may qualify for state assistance, which I'll talk about a little later on. And those are the requirements for student aid. Those of you who completed a FAFSA in previous years might notice that the question regarding selective service, it's missing. Well, no, it's not missing because of the FAFSA Simplification Act that was signed into law less than a year ago. The requirement for males to be registered for selective service in order to receive federal student aid has been removed in order for you to receive federal student aid. So again, men, you don't have to be registered for selective service to receive federal student aid. I mean, you should still register because it's still the law, but it's not a requirement for receiving student aid. On this screen and the next screen are summaries of what you can expect to see as you're completing the FAFSA, each section. The first section would be student demographics. Again, this is the student's application. Make sure you're providing your information, not your parents, your name, your Social Security number, your date of birth. All sounds very simple. Hopefully, students, you've committed your Social Security number to memory. If you stored it on this device, delete it now. Store it up here. This is the best place to keep it. As far as your name, I know this sounds very simple. You need to enter your name as it appears on your Social Security card, because all your identifying information, it's going to be matched against other federal databases, such as Social Security Administration or U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services if you're not a citizen. There'll be a section where students will provide their income information, not your parents, yours, and also assets if you have any. So if you filed a tax return, or if you didn't file a tax return, but you worked in 2020, you have a W-2, or you know what your gross earnings were, you would report that in the income section. And there's also a section where the parents would provide their income information and report their demographic information. And somewhere in the middle, there's a section that determines whether the student is independent or dependent. Now, on the FAFSA, there is no magical question, are you independent or dependent? To be independent, you have to meet the federal government's definition of independence. Once you complete the application, you'll see what those questions are. I'll give you a summary. If you're at least 24, you're married, you're a graduate student, you have children or dependents of your own, you're a veteran, you're on active duty, you're an orphan or ward of the court, or you're homeless at risk of becoming homeless, or you're under legal guardianship, or we're in foster care. Those were some of the questions. If you're able to answer yes to one of those, then you may qualify as an independent student. In other words, you don't have to provide parents' information. Now, be advised, if you answer yes to one of those questions, your college or university may ask you to document that you qualify for that. Otherwise, I believe for most of you, you're going to be considered a dependent student. Even if you're not living with mom and dad, that does make you independent. Even if you're 18 or 21, that in and of itself does not make you independent. So depending on how you answer the questions, in all likelihood, most of the students on this call are going to be considered dependent. In other words, you'll be providing your parents' information. So assuming you're a dependent student, again, getting back to the household information, you'll be reporting how many persons are in the household, which are generally the student applicant, the parent or parents, if there are two parents in the household, your children for whom you provide more, you have your support. I'm talking about the parents and anyone else who lives in your household and you're providing more than half their support. For example, parents, if your elderly or disabled parent, in other words, the student's grandparent, is living with you and you're providing more than half the support, they will be included in the household size. And of those persons, excluding the parents, how many of them will be attending college at least half-time for the upcoming year? So it would be at least one, the student applicant, and then any other children or dependents who will be attending college at least half-time or anticipate attending college for the upcoming year. I mentioned before, income and assets you'll be reporting. If you can use the IRS data retrieval, please do so. Otherwise, have your 2020 tax return handy in order to manually enter the information. Key to this is you can report your FAFSA information to up to 10 colleges or universities throughout the United States. So if you know the school's 6-digit federal school code, great. If not, you can check with the college, or you can actually do a search as you're completing the FAFSA, search it by name and by state, the name of the college, and you can list that college or university.
Doug, if I could jump in, we have a number of questions and some of them are specific to what we did just discuss. Some I can answer myself. So the first is FAFSA work for out-of-state colleges. Yes, both in-state and out-of-state. What if a student applies to more than 10 schools? Okay, so the FAFSA, you can only list 10 schools. How would you advise that student to prioritize those 10 schools on his or her FAFSA application?
That's going to be a multi-step process. On a single application, you are limited to 10 colleges or universities. So let's say you want to send the information to 15. So you would list 10 colleges, submit your application, and when you receive your acknowledgement or student aid report, you can actually update or change information. And that change would be deleting 5 colleges in this example, and then replacing them with the remaining 5, and then resubmitting the application. So there is a way. It would just take a couple of steps.
Okay, great. And I had another parent or student who had asked if you can go back and modify the colleges after you have submitted. So you just answered yes. You can always log back in, add colleges, edit your colleges. You do just have to make sure that you are resubmitting that information. And then I have a few more specific questions. I think it would be beneficial to go over those and then we can move forward. What would you advise, and we might talk about this in a little bit more specificity, in the event that there is a family where mom and dad are not together, let's say there's a divorce situation. So I have a parent who had asked, what if one parent, an ex, okay, is that if they make more money, how would you advise essentially the information that is put on that FAFSA? Which parent's information do you utilize in a family where mom and dad are not together?
In the parental section, one of the first questions you're going to be asked, mom or dad, is what is your marital status? And you've got 5 choices. One of them being married or remarried, divorced or separated, widowed, never married, or unmarried but living together. Now, if there's only one parent in the household, then you would only report that one parent's information. Now, which parent would it be? Under current FAFSA instructions, you, the student, are going to report the information of the parent you live with more in the 12 months before you completed the FAFSA. So if you're completing the application tonight, which parent did you live with more between October 2020 and September of 2021? Now, some people might say, well, I live with each parent equally. Then then the litmus test would be which parent provided more support. Oh, they provided equal support. You have to pick one parent if it comes to that. I mean, for most of you, it's an easy choice. It's going to be the parent you're living with. You don't have to report the other parent's information if they're divorced or not living with you, with one exception. If that other parent who's not living with you, the non-custodial parent, if they're provided child support to the custodial parent in 2020, you'd have to report the total amount of child support that was received during the year. That's the only exception. Now, something else that might arise if the parents are divorced or separated, but they may have filed a joint tax return in 2020. That happens. If you're separated, you can still file jointly. What you have to do with the FAFSA, you can't use the IRS data retrieval. You're going to have to be a little creative. You're going to have to exclude the non-custodial parent's income as you're completing the income information. I don't know, it gets a little tricky, but that's what you have to do. As far as tax paid, then you'd prorate depending upon how much the custodial parent earned.
Great.
So generally, if the parents are divorced or not living together, you'd only have to report the one parent's information.
Thank you. And you just answered another question for us too. If a tax return was filed jointly and then there's a parent who maybe not be in the household any longer, so they would have to not use the data retrieval tool, correct, and manually put that information in. I have another, it's a student who had asked if a teenager or the student never had a job, how will the tax information be completed for the FAFSA? Plus most students don't have a credit rating yet. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, if a student did not work, the student would not be providing any type of financial information, correct?
You're half right.
Okay.
When you get to the student section, if you, the student, didn't file a tax return or didn't even work in 2020, you won't be asked to provide adjusted gross income or tax paid. For income from work, you'd enter 0. That would be the only thing. And you may also be asked to provide asset information, even if you don't have anything, enter 0.
Super. This is a great question as well, too. When you delete a college, so if you were modifying your list of 10 schools, once you delete that college, does that delete the original application or submission of information to that college that you had previously sent it to?
No. The first 10 colleges, in the example I gave, even if you replace them with 5 other colleges and then resubmit your FAFSA, those 5 colleges, they're still going to have the information from your first transaction. So it doesn't delete the FAFSA information from the other school's database. Even if you delete it on the FAFSA, those original schools will still have that original information. So you don't have to worry about the information being lost or being deleted.
Great, thank you. One last question and then we'll move forward. What if your 2020 1040s are on extension? Would they be able to take the 19s with the extension?
If you are eligible for an extension, I mean, the automatic extension, I believe it's almost over. So to file for the extension beyond the automatic extension, which I believe is Form 8563 or something like that, you will not use 2019. You have to basically estimate what your adjusted gross income and tax paid will be for 2020. Now, if you're selected for verification, the student, and I'll get to verification shortly, you might be asked to provide proof that you were granted an extension beyond the automatic 6-month deadline. So, I mean, I'm not saying that families won't apply for an extension beyond the original 6 months, because we're approaching that 6-month limit now. But if you do, again, estimate what your income would have been for 2020. And if you're selected for verification, follow the college's instructions. But typically, if you file for the original extension right after April 15th and you subsequently file your tax return, if you're selected for verification, again, report your actual tax information if you have it by then. I don't know if that makes sense, but no, don't go to 2019. Estimate 2020 if need be.
All right, super. I think let's keep moving forward. Thank you, Doug.
Next. Now, this is what you will all aspire to as far as FAFSA completion, the confirmation page. Congratulations. Your application is being processed. By process, that means it's going to go to your state agency, which would be New Jersey Higher Ed or HESA. It also goes to all the colleges and universities that you listed. One thing I forgot to mention at the very beginning, as you're completing the FAFSA, you're going to be asked which FAFSA you want to complete. You're going to see 2021 and 2022, as well as 2022 and 2023. Make sure you select the 2022-2023, which is for next year. Why is there a 2021-2022, the current year? That's because there are students currently attending college or who may begin college this upcoming winter or spring who haven't submitted a FAFSA yet. So they still have time to do that. So that application is still going to be available for the next 7 or 8 months. So again, if you're entering college in the fall of 2022, make sure you're completing the correct FAFSA, which will be 2022-2023. Now, getting back to the confirmation page, if any parents are blessed to have 2 or more children in college in 1 year, each child has to complete their own FAFSA. So as one child completes her FAFSA, if the second child is ready to complete his, mom, dad, you'll have the opportunity to transfer all that information from your first child's FAFSA onto the next child's if they're ready to complete their application. So that button will be available on the confirmation page if you're ready at that point. Now, as I mentioned before, you make corrections to the FAFSA. If you made a mistake, make mistakes, they can be corrected. In some cases, the college may make a correction if you're selected for verification, but to avoid mistakes, make sure you provide accurate information before. As I alluded to before, make sure you've memorized your social security number, students, parents, and again, make sure you're providing your information in your section, student, and your information in your section, parents. I gave a definition of the number of persons in the household. So in the case of divorce or separated parents, if they're not living together, you only include one parent's information. So make sure that's correct. For divorced or remarried couples, in other words, if your natural parents are divorced, but the parent you're living with has remarried, in other words, is a step parent, the marital status is not going to be divorced, status of your natural parents, it's going to be married/remarried. In other words, your parent and step parent, you're going to provide that step parent's information. Another common mistake, which isn't so common because people are using the IRS data retrieval tool, is reporting taxes withheld, which is on your W-2, as opposed to taxes paid or your tax liability, which you find on your 1040. Something else you want to be mindful of, if any of you are receiving Social Security benefits, SSI, or disability, that's considered untaxed income. Well, that untaxed income is not reported on the FAFSA anymore. So make sure you're not reporting any Social Security benefits unless they're taxable. But untaxed benefits, you don't report them. And as I mentioned before, to answer that parent's question or that student's question, even if you didn't have any income student or parent, enter 0 when they ask you how much you earned from work or how much your spouse earned from work. Now, I mentioned a couple of times verification process. About 18% of all FAFSA applicants are selected for a process called verification. That's where the college, on behalf of the federal government, will be verifying the information that you reported. By verifying, they'll ask you to complete a form to list the number of persons in your household to make sure it matches what you report on the FAFSA. You might be also asked to provide a signed copy of your 2020 tax return by the college or university. Now, if you use the IRS data retrieval tool, parent or student, then there's no need for the college to verify the information because much of that information has already been verified by the IRS. So that's another argument for using the IRS data retrieval tool if you're eligible. Now, that's federal verification. The state of New Jersey also has a verification process separate from the federal government. So if somebody's asking for verification information, for example, if your college asks for information and then you receive something from the state of New Jersey asking for information, don't ignore the state or don't assume that by providing information to your college that satisfies the state's verification. No, they're two separate entities. So make sure that you're responding to that entity. And also, I mentioned before, students, you need to take ownership. So all communication from the college, from U.S. Department of Education, from HISA, that's going directly to your email, not to your parents. So make sure that you respond in a timely manner. Otherwise, you could risk delaying or losing federal or state assistance, and you don't want to do that. Now, you remember earlier I was talking about eligibility requirements for federal student aid, one of them being U.S. citizenship or being an eligible non-citizen. If there are any students who are not eligible non-citizens, but you came here at a young age and you're considered what's called a dreamer, you don't qualify for federal aid, but you may still qualify for TAG or other state assistance that I mentioned earlier. You would complete not the FAFSA, but something called the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid Application, which is available on HISA's website. You would register for that by creating a user ID and password. Now, this is separate from the FSA ID that I spoke about as you're completing the FAFSA. This would be an entirely different application. The questions are going to be similar to what you normally see on a FAFSA, but if you are considered a dreamer in your state, in other words, you are trying to apply for genuine citizenship, you may still qualify for assistance from the state of New Jersey. You just have to complete a separate application. And this is a screenshot of what you can expect to see on NJFAMS if you're completing the alternative application. And even US citizens, if you complete the FAFSA, as mentioned before, this information goes to HISA and they'll determine your eligibility for TAG. You can create a user ID and password to log into NJFAMS and check your status of your TAG to see what you qualify for, depending upon which colleges or which New Jersey colleges you listed. You can also use this site if you or your parent decide to apply for an NJ class loan. NJFAMS also has a checklist. If there's anything you have to complete as far as providing information, it'll be indicated on the checklist. You just go to that link and provide the information that's asked for. If you're selected for state verification, you have to provide tax information. You would upload the information, in other words, create a PDF of that tax return and upload it into a secure portal on HISA's website. So that's the application process. Before I get into cost of attendance, any more questions pop up in the chat that we can answer?
Yes, I have a few. So how would we apply when one parent is enrolled in college as well too?
Well, you complete the FAFSA as I just described. As I also mentioned, for dependent students, you can indicate how many persons are in college, excluding the parents, unfortunately. Now, parents, if you're completing your own FAFSA, you can do that. When you get to your household section, parent, and you're listing the number of persons in college, you can include yourself and you can include your dependent child. So parents, you can include the child, but not vice versa on the child's application.
Okay, next question. My child has a W-2 from 2020, but did not make enough to file a tax return. Does she report that income and tax withheld manually?
Well, she didn't file a tax return, it's not required to. Under tax status, she would indicate will not file a tax return. And by doing so, she won't be asked adjusted gross income or tax paid. She will be asked what her gross earnings were for the year, but not the tax withheld, just the gross earnings.
Okay, great. So there's a situation where a parent has passed away and Social Security is being received monthly as support. How is that included in the application? And how about income from a life insurance policy?
Generally, we're looking at income from a particular tax year, in this case, 2020, and current assets. Now, let me address the insurance payout. Now, if any portion of your insurance settlement is included in your current assets, checking or savings, students or parent, then you would include that as it is. Now, what was the first part of that question? I'm sorry.
That's okay. They're receiving Social Security. How is that, and receiving that monthly, how would that be incorporated, potentially into the FAFSA application?
Well, remember, as I said before, you're only reporting taxable portions of Social Security. So if any portion of your Social Security is untaxed, it's not an issue. You don't report it at all. Now, on the other hand, if your Social Security benefits in 2020, if any portion was taxable, and let's say it's a sizable amount, again, you would report the taxable amount. Now, if those benefits are going to terminate because you, the student, are turning 18 or 19 in 2021 or even 2022, contact your financial aid office for further instructions. And in fact, let me just nip that in the bud. If there's been any change in circumstance after 2020, because remember, you're reporting information from a year ago, and in some cases, there may have been a change in financial circumstance. A taxpayer or tax filer may have lost their job in early 21 because of layoff or whatever, or originally the parents were married and they filed a joint return and reported both parents' information. And then after the FAFSA was filed, the parents separated, got divorced, or heaven forbid, one parent passed away. That's a significant change in the family's ability to contribute. In all those cases, including the one I alluded to before regarding Social Security or termination of benefits, contact your financial aid office for further instructions, because depending on the change in circumstance, they may be able to reassess your student's federal aid eligibility depending upon the current circumstances. Now, as far as the FAFSA, still report the information as it was on your 2020 application, your 2020 tax return. But if there have been changes since then, or since you've completed the FAFSA, contact the financial aid office for further instructions.
Okay, thank you for that. I have two other questions. Could you clarify, Doug, where you find and complete information for NJ FAMs and how this relates to or compares with the FAFSA?
Going in the wrong direction. Well, by virtue of you, the student, completing the FAFSA, the information, well, assuming you indicate that you're a New Jersey resident, all of your FAFSA data is going to New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. So they'll have the base information, but you, the student, would still have to create an NJ FAMS account to confirm the information or confirm your tag eligibility, or if you've been selected for state verification, you'll need that account. And again, they'll already have your FAFSA data as a basis, but you have to do this separately from completing the FAFSA.
And they can find that how?
They can find that. If you remember nothing else, you can go to njgrants.org. It'll direct you there. Now, if you forget to complete this portion, if you've submitted the FAFSA and you, the student, provided a valid email address, if you haven't created an NJ FAMS account, at some point, HESA is going to send you an email communication encouraging you to create an NJ FAMS account in case you forget to do so here.
Okay. Do students need to fill out or create an NJ FAMS account if they plan to attend an out-of-state school?
I guess not. You are absolutely not going to attend a New Jersey institution, which you would, but if you're not, then I guess there's no need. I mean, if you are considering a New Jersey college, as a fallback in case the non-New Jersey institution doesn't work out, or for some reason you need to transfer back to the Garden State, it wouldn't be a bad idea to create a FAMS account. So, but technically, if you're absolutely not going to attend a New Jersey institution, then there'd be no need to create an NJ FAMS account. You're right about that.
Okay, last but not least, as a parent of a junior, should they be doing anything now to prepare for this process?
3 words: mark your calendar. Now, as I mentioned, the 22-23 FAFSA, it's available now for seniors. Now, for current high school juniors, your FAFSA will become available on October 1st, 2022, almost a year from now. And that'll be the 2023-2024 FAFSA. Now, so there's no application you have to complete right now. You can still go to the college's net price calculator, provide income information to get an idea of how much you might qualify for from federal, state, and institutional assistance, just to get an idea. And something else that junior parents and students can do right now is apply for an FSA ID, so that by the time you're ready to complete that 23-24 FAFSA in October of next year, that'll be one less thing that you'll have to complete. I mean, you still have to do the FAFSA, but you already have your e-signatures from the FSA ID. Any other questions before I go forward?
No, that concludes our questions for now, so we can keep moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. We just passed the hour mark. I think we're almost finished. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about cost of attendance. Think of this student as your budget when you're attending a college or university. Naturally, you'll be paying tuition, room and board every semester. When you think of cost of attendance, you also need to consider other expenses such as books and supplies every semester. If you're ever studying abroad, once we are able to travel on a regular basis, you may be able to study for 1 or 2 semesters outside the United States. You have to add on those additional expenses. If there are any students with dependent children, you can add dependent care expenses. If you have a disability and you'd like the college to consider that, that could be added into your standard cost of attendance. You need to contact your particular college or university to make sure that those expenses are factored into your standard cost of attendance. And also you need to consider transportation, the cost of getting back and forth, particularly if you're commuting. Even if you're planning to live on campus, you want to get away every weekend, every other weekend. There are going to be some costs associated as far as transportation. So you need to take those into consideration. Other things you might not think about, if for some reason you have to take remedial or ESL courses for 1 or 2 semesters, may take you an additional year for you to obtain a 4-year degree. So you need to plan accordingly. For a 4-year degree, it may actually take you 5 to 6 years. Also, if you change your major, some of the credits that you've earned previously might not be transferable into your new program. So that might delay your graduation for another semester or a year. So you need to consider that once you select a program or you're thinking of selecting a program. Likewise, if you're transferring from one institution to another, except if you're going from a community college straight to a 4-year college, usually that's not a problem. But if you're going from 4-year to 4-year, some of the credits might not be transferable depending upon the program, depending upon the new college's admission standards. In other words, it may take you a little longer to complete that 4-year degree, depending upon remedial or transferring actions. I didn't speak much about the student aid report or SAR. When you complete your FAFSA, you, the student, will be directed back to FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov to review all the information. And you'll see something called an expected family contribution or EFC. That's not going to be your bill. That's an estimate. That's based on a formula established by Congress that determines how much you may qualify for from federal Pell Grants. Colleges also use this information to determine your eligibility for subsidized direct loan and other need-based assistance at their college and universities. Now, the EFC is constant, no matter what type of institution you're applying for. In fact, let me give you a quick example. The Smith family who completes a FAFSA and their EFC after they complete the information is $20,830. What does that mean at different institutions? Well, for this particular chart, if they're considered going to a community college where the costs are considerably lower than a 4-year institution, their financial need in this case would be 0. That doesn't mean that they don't get any assistance. They may still qualify for merit-based aid if the college offers it. As far as assistance from the federal government, the only thing they'd qualify for would be an unsubsidized direct loan. On the other hand, if the student is considering attending a 4-year public institution, you notice that the price tag, particularly the tuition and fees, are higher than at your community college. So if you subtract your EFC, which is not changed, from your cost of attendance, you will have a financial need, which is what the college uses to award need-based assistance. Again, in this case, federal Stafford loan or subsidized Stafford loan. That's for a 4-year public institution. For 4-year private or independent institution, where the costs are a tad higher than at a public institution, if you subtract that same EFC, you notice you have a larger financial need, which means you may receive maximum federal Stafford loan. And also, if the institution offers need-based assistance through grants or scholarships, you may qualify for those as well, because you have higher financial need than you would at a 4-year public or a 2-year public institution. As I mentioned before, the FAFSA is available now. Now, this October to March range, this doesn't mean that you cannot complete the FAFSA after March. You can, but again, some colleges will have earlier deadlines for campus-based assistance. They may ask you to complete the FAFSA by February 1st or March 1st, so make sure you adhere to that. As far as school sending award letters, as I mentioned, some colleges might begin as early as November or December. Now, about five or 6 years ago, it was not unusual to start receiving award notices as early as February or March, but now you might get a little early depending upon the college's award cycle and how quickly you complete the FAFSA. And another milestone you might want to think about would be term bills, something parents are thinking about. Once that term bill comes due, typically during the summer in June, July, or early August, you'll receive something from the school's bursar or student accounts office outlining what your tuition fees and room and board will be if you're planning to live on campus, and they'll subtract all of your creditable financial aid, in other words, grants or scholarships, or even student loans for which you might qualify. Whatever the balance is, then you have to make arrangements to pay that balance, either through a payment plan, or if you can pay it in one shot, great. And again, the term bill is going to be addressed to you, the student, not to the parent. So don't rely, yes, work with mom and dad, but all the communications go directly to you. So make sure you read that information and share that information with your parents, particularly when it comes to completing the FAFSA, and definitely when it comes time to paying that term bill. So as far as where you go from now, I don't have to tell you this. Your parents and your guidance office has been telling you this since the beginning of the school year, if not earlier. Obtain all the admissions information, because ultimately the college you attend should be based on the program that you're offering, if you like it, not so much what financial aid that they offer. I mean, if you plan accordingly and plan early enough, you can attend whichever college or whichever program you want to. You just need to plan ahead. And again, make sure you meet all the college's deadlines. And there are also deadlines with the state of New Jersey. Now, for you guys, in order to receive TAG, this is not a typo at the end. You would have until September of 2022 to complete the FAFSA to be considered for TAG. But the problem is your term bill is going to be due like 1 or 2 months prior to that. So you definitely do not want to procrastinate. And also, when you become a renewal student, in other words, you receive TAG in your first year and you want to receive TAG in your second year, that deadline moves up about 5 months. So you have to complete your FAFSA by April of next year in order to be considered for TAG for the upcoming year. And you don't want to lose that just because you missed the deadline. So the moral here is apply early and apply annually. And if you have questions, contact your financial aid office or your counseling office at your high school. I mentioned before other resources, outside scholarships, within your own community, within your library, something that's not available to myself, probably your parents, the World Wide Web. There are plenty of scholarship searches available, one of them being fastweb.com, where you provide certain information. You may receive information about a scholarship for which you might qualify. It's not going to be a scholarship award, but just a link to where you can apply for that particular scholarship. I mentioned before, campus employment or work study program. If any of you planning to live on campus, one opportunity that might be available would be a stipend. If you become a resident assistant or an RA, that's somebody who assists students as they're living in a particular dormitory or residence hall, if you will. For compensation, they don't get a paycheck. The RAs, they receive free room and board for their services. Probably not your freshman year, but probably by your sophomore or junior year, you may be eligible to apply for resident assistantship. I mentioned fastweb.com, also HESA and the College Board, and also Mapping Your Future. This list is not all inclusive. There may be other sources for which you might be familiar, or even your guidance office may be familiar on the local level. So definitely check with them as far as what's available as far as private scholarship searches. And some parents may have started a college savings plan about 16, 17 years ago, which is great. If you have a younger child, or if you know of somebody who's about to become a parent, please encourage them to invest in their child by creating a college savings plan, or 529. Through the state of New Jersey, there's a plan that you can apply for by investing a certain amount, maybe $500 up to $3,000 a month. Well, I'm sorry, that's a scholarship amount. The actual plan investment might be like $100 initially, and if you can invest a little bit more over time, then once your child enters college, he or she may qualify for a substantial amount in order to pay for their college expenses. And in the state of New Jersey, there's also a scholarship for which you might receive up to $3,000 for your first year. And it's not just limited to parents. Grandparents could also take out this plan. Students, this is something you might want to think about 10 or 20 years from now, at which point you're going to become a parent. And one of the best gifts you can give your child is investing in your child's education through a college savings plan. And again, if you remember nothing else, remember the websites, studentaid.gov, HESA.org, njgrants.org. If you have questions regarding student aid at the federal or state level, you can also contact the customer care line at 609-584-4480. If you have questions along the way. And that concludes the presentation. I'm going to stop now. Answer, and if time permits, to answer any other questions that participants may have had.
Sure, we do have a question. Before we get to the question, I just want to add two things. Our website, if you go to the financial aid page, most of the resources and information that were mentioned here today, you will be able to have easy access to all of that through our website. We also have this presentation posted, and we will be posting the recording. In addition to that, just in regards to local scholarships, so seniors and senior parents, very soon, generally around December, Mrs. Zach, who is our scholarship chairperson, she will be meeting with seniors regarding the local scholarship program. Annually, we usually award close to, if not over $100,000 on an annual basis to seniors from local organizations that, want to give back and to provide to seniors. So it's a great opportunity for our senior students to receive some local scholarship award aid. We encourage all of our seniors to participate in that program. The other local and national scholarship resources that Doug had mentioned here as well too can all be found on our website. So we encourage you to check those out. I will get to our questions now. And if anybody has any other questions, please post them in our question and answer. Doug, in calculating the EFC, do they consider debt other than those that are accounted for in the, it looks like AGI?
Generally, debt, particularly credit card, mortgage debt, or some other personal debt would not be included. In the EFC calculation, which I couldn't even begin to describe, the federal government does take into consideration that the family would pay federal, state, and local taxes. So based upon a formula that the federal government uses, they'll estimate what those tax liabilities will be based upon the age of the parent, income, of course, the state you're living in, among other things. And they also take into consideration your regular living expenses when calculating the EFC, and also the number of persons in college. But generally, personal debt, you wouldn't report, there's no place to report that on the FAFSA, and it would not be a consideration.
Thank you. Okay, I have no questions at this time. However, we will leave this open in case anybody does have any last minute questions they would like to post. For those of you who will be signing off, thank you again for joining us tonight. Any questions that you do have, we're more than happy to help you within the guidance office or point you in the right appropriate direction.
Greg, I'd just like to mention that sometimes because of COVID, we haven't had too many parents and not hardly any parents in the meetings with us, with the senior meetings with the parents. So please, a lot of the stuff that Doug mentioned today and Ms. Weger mentioned, we've gone over this with the students. So please ask your students if you have any questions, or email me. If I'm your child's counselor, to get the answers that you may need regarding colleges and any questions.
Okay, so I guess if that's it, I want to thank you all very much for your time. Students, good luck to you in your endeavors. And again, if you have questions, ask the people on this panel. Well, not me, but your guidance office, and certainly your financial aid office if and when that time comes.
Thanks, Doug. Nice seeing you again.
You too. Thank you.